afternoon. My name is Asia. I'm going to tell you a story. In 1984, my parents packed up me, my mom, we all packed up this airplane and flew to America. And we lived a really good life for about a good 10 years. And I remember coming to America, I didn't know how to speak English. 10 years later, I didn't know how to speak Tagalog. So it's really weird, right? And in 1995, my parents started having marital problems. And they decided to split up. And my dad, we were living in California at the time, my dad decided to move to Florida. And because they were fighting so much, and I didn't have parents to go to, I started getting myself involved in a lot of bad things. Hanging out with the wrong people, doing the wrong things. And I knew that if I were to stay in California, I would probably, something would happen and I would get shot. Something would happen to me. So in 1997, despite me not wanting to do it, I moved to Florida. No friends, no one to hang out with. But I had to go because if I didn't go, I would have, something bad would have even worse happened to me in California. But in 1997, me and 10 other youth were put into this van, and we were driven 5 hours north to Jacksonville, Florida, to what we knew at the time to be South Florida, to be known as CFC Youth Camp. Kiko was one of them, and there was 8 others who are no longer here. And when we came back from Jacksonville, we started what is now known as South Florida YFC, right? And I loved serving in YFC. For 3 years, I served in YFC, and I enjoyed every moment of it. But something happened in YFC at that time that I'm not going to get into detail about it. I'm not going to say what happened exactly and whose fault it was. All I know is there was a lot of pain and a lot of struggle that led me to have to step down and walk away from CFC. And I had so much resentment for CFC. I didn't want to come back to CFC. Didn't want to have anything to do with CFC anymore. That's why this is weird for me to be up here now. But I'll get to that in a minute. After I left CFC, about a year later, I meet a girl who ended up becoming my wife. So, I met her, we dated, had a good time. 2 years after we were dating, January of 2006, I was diagnosed with testicular cancer. And the funny thing was she's a PA, so she was the one that found it. She was the one that found what was wrong with me, and she was the one that even assisted in my surgery. And I knew that anybody who is willing to walk to hell with you and walk back and still proclaim God is someone that you marry, right? So in January of 2008, me and her got married. And in June of 2008, our house was robbed. They took everything. They took my TV, they took my computers, they took everything that was in my house. We came home that day, we had nothing. And we're like, wow, now we have no TV, nothing, we're just going to read. Around that time, we get an invitation from Chef, who said, why don't you come over to this thing that we're having, it's for GK. We had no idea what GK was. We decided to go anyway. And we realized, through the work of GK, that me and my wife had a lot more in common than we thought, right? And we started getting involved in GK, started going to GK meetings all the time, started working for the poor. Why am I telling you all of this? Why am I telling you all my whole life story from the time I was 7 to the time now I'm 32? I'm telling you this because at 32 years old, I finally learned that sometimes God will make a decision for you that you're not able to make yourself. Every step of my life, everything that's ever went wrong in my life happened for a reason that I didn't know at the time. The reason God moved me from the Philippines to California was to teach me that the world is a lot bigger than the Philippines. When my parents were fighting, and he moved me from California to Florida when I didn't want to, it was because he was teaching me that I needed to leave because I would be hurt if I stayed. And when I moved to Florida, he put me into YFC because he needed me to learn that I needed to love him and I needed to find him in the midst of all my chaos. And then he took me out of CFC and took me out of YFC because He needed for me to see that I want to see how faithful you are without the ministry beside you. When you're not, no one is praising and worshiping with you, let me see your faith. Let me see if you will still believe me even after you feel betrayed. Let me see. And then He brought a wife to me to teach me that I don't have to do it alone. And then we were robbed because He had to teach me that there were more important things in life than, He's like saying, pay attention to your marriage. If you do not stop watching TV and on the computer, you will not realize, you will not get to know your wife. You will not. 6 months. He said 6 months. This is the time for you to know your wife and to love her and to have, companionship with her. We have no TV. And now, at night, we sleep together, but we read together before we do. And then before we used to turn on the TV before we ate. Now, because we have no TV, we're always praying before we eat, and then we eat, and then we discuss each other's day. Right? This is all through the work of God, right? And then GK. Why GK? Because now God was telling me, okay, you love me. You said you worship me. Prove it to me. Show me you love me. Because here we are. We call ourselves soldiers. We call ourselves, we love God. And we will go to war and we will fight for our God. But then there's the war and you're like, well, I'll just stay home. Go ahead. I can't do that. GK, if you want to see God, find God in the eyes of the poor. You want to see God, find God in the eyes of the people who are less fortunate. You want to see God, find God in those people who are sick and who you are administering to. That's where God is. God is not, when you're praising and worship, He is there. But God is even more there when someone is looking at you saying, if you're going to worship me, then take care of my own. And because we got involved in GK, my wife said to me, why don't we get back into CFC? And I said, well, wait. I said, I don't know. That's really tough. I'm going to have to face a lot of people that I haven't faced in a long time. But then she said, but do you remember what happened to you in cancer? You have to understand that after CFC, I didn't want to be, I wasn't even mad at Filipinos. The rumors and the chismes and stuff, right? But when I went through cancer, do you want to know who took care of me? Or Filipinos? Who took care of me? My wife. That was where God was. So I said, you know what? Let's go to the CLP. Let's make amends. Because it's all about forgiveness, right? It's about fighting for God, right? And so it really humbles someone to go through all of these things, only to realize that God, we always tell God, right? What's that song where we're saying, God, mold me, right? Mold me into someone you want me to be. But then the moment He starts to mold you, you're like, oh, I don't want that, right? No, I can't do that. No, He's doing it for a reason. All the pain, all the struggle will always be balanced out by the joy and the love that the people have around you. And that's why I'm here. That's why I'm doing GK. Because I know that I'm still going to go through a lot more. Cancer, robberies, gangs, betrayal, all of those things. But I'm still here, and I'm still learning. And I still love God. And I will still fight for God. So I hope that you guys can also join us in this fight. Because we can't do this alone. We can't turn our back on the people that love us most. That's why I couldn't turn my back to CLP. I had to see at CFC. Couldn't turn my back on. Because those were the people I loved the most. And those were the people that I knew loved me genuinely. So if they can love me despite of my faults, and I can love them despite of what I felt for them, then I can surely love the poor. And I can surely love God through the poor. So, that's what I want to say. And just know that no matter what God is putting you through at the moment, whether you have a video camera in your stomach, right, or you only have one testicle left from your cancer, or if your house gets robbed, or someone you know is dying, or someone you know can't eat, God has a bigger plan for us. And He's going to get us out of it if we just follow Him and and let him mold us. And I can't wait. I'm excited to see what he does for me next.